The story that you are about to hear is a compilation of documented true facts, featuring characters, events, or places that has played a role in shaping history. Please sit back and listen as I recite this narrative for you. Alcatraz Islands is a small offshore island in San Francisco that served as a fort, a military prison, and a maximum security federal penitentiary in the past. Due to the cold waters and strong currents of San Francisco Bay, prison operators believed that the prison was escape-proof and America's strongest prison, and it housed some of America's most difficult and dangerous felons during its years of operation, from 1934 to 1963. The notorious gangster Al Scarface Capone and murderer Robert Birdman of Alcatraz Stroud were among those who served time at the maximum security facility. It is said that no inmate ever successfully escaped the Rock, as the prison was nicknamed, but there were more than a dozen known attempts made over the years. Alcatraz was already a foreboding place in the 1930s, surrounded by the cold, rough waters of the Pacific. The redesign included tougher iron bars, a series of strategically placed guard towers, and strict rules such as a dozen prisoners' checks per day. It appeared that escaping was nearly impossible. Despite the odds, 36 men attempted 14 separate escapes from 1934 until the prison closed in 1963. Almost all were apprehended or did not survive the attempt. The fate of 3 specific inmates, on the other hand, remains a mystery to this day. Here is their tale. The routine early morning bed check on June 12, 1962 turned out to be anything but routine. John Anglin, his brother Clarence, and Frank Morris were not in their cells. Dummy heads made of plaster, flesh-tone paint, and real human hair were cleverly constructed in their beds, apparently fooling the night guards. The prison was placed under lockdown and an extensive search was launched. The 3 inmates pierced the prison walls with sharpened spoons and floated away on a raft made of 50 raincoats. Their bodies were never found, leaving many to speculate whether they died in the choppy waters of San Francisco Bay or made it to shore and freedom. According to the FBI, 4 inmates plotted escape, but the 4th one, Alan West, didn't make it out of his cell in time and began providing information to the FBI during the investigation. The 4 inmates had previously been incarcerated in Florida and Georgia. When they were assigned to adjacent cells in December 1961, they began devising an escape strategy under the direction of Morris. The group had started making plans in December of the previous year after one of them discovered some old saw blades. They widened the ventilation ducts beneath their sinks over the next 6 months with discarded saw blades found on the prison grounds, metal spoons from the mess hall, and an electrical drill improvised from a vacuum cleaner's motor. They hid the holes with whatever they could find, a suitcase or a piece of cardboard, and the noise from Morris's accordion was added to the ambient din of a music hour. When the holes were large enough to pass through, the man entered the unguarded utility corridor directly behind their cell's tier and climbed to the cell block's vacant top level, where they set up a covert workshop. They used a variety of stolen and donated materials to build and hide what they needed to escape there, taking turns keeping watch for the guards in the evening before the last count. More than 50 stolen or gathered raincoats were turned into a makeshift life preservers and a 6x14-foot rubber raft. The seams carefully stitched together and vulcanized by the prison's hot steam pipes. The idea came from magazines found in the prisoners' cells. They also made wooden paddles and converted a musical instrument into a raft inflating tool. They were both looking for a way out of the building at the same time. The ceiling was about 30 feet high, but they climbed up using a network of pipes and eventually pried open the ventilator at the top of the shaft. They temporarily held it in place by making a fake bolt out of soap. The men concealed their absence while working outside their cells, as well as after the escape, by sculpting dummy heads out of a homemade papier-mâché-like mixture of soap, toothpaste, concrete dust, and toilet paper, and giving them a realistic appearance with paint from the maintenance shop and hair from the barber shop floor. They appeared to be sleeping, with towels and clothing piled under the blankets in their bunks and the dummy heads propped up on the pillows. They were ready to go on the evening of June 11. West discovered that the cement he used to reinforce the crumbling concrete around his vent had hardened, narrowing the opening and securing the grill. The others had left without him by the time he was able to remove the grill and re-widen the hole. He went back to his cell and fell asleep. The three others entered the corridor, gathered their belongings, climbed up and out of the ventilator, and climbed to the prison roof. Then, they snuck down the bakery smokestack at the back of the cell house, climbed over the fence, and snuck to the island's northeast shore where they launched their raft. At some time after 10 p.m., investigators estimated they boarded the raft, launched it, and departed toward their objective, Angel Island, 2 miles to the north. Due to the successful dummy head ruse, the escape was not discovered until the morning of June 12. Over the next 10 days, multiple military and law enforcement agencies conducted extensive air, sea, and land searches. On June 14, a Coast Guard cutter spotted a paddle floating about 200 yards off Angel Island's southern shore. Workers on another boat discovered a wallet wrapped in plastic on the same day and in the same general area, complete with the names, addresses, and photos of the Anglin's friends and relatives. Shreds of raincoat material, thought to be raft remnants, were discovered on a beach near the Golden Gate Bridge on June 21. A prison boat picked up a deflated life jacket made of the same material 50 yards off Alcatraz Island the next day. No other physical evidence was discovered according to the final FBI report. What happened next remains a mystery. There have been reported sightings since the three inmates escaped. Agents were sent to South America when rumors about Clarence Anglin was living in Brazil in January 1965, but they found no direct evidence that he was there. In 1967, a man claiming to be Morris's classmate stated that he bumped into him in Maryland but refused to give further details. Family members of the Anglin brothers occasionally received postcards and messages over the years. Most were unsigned. One was signed Jerry and another Jerry and Joe. The mother of the Anglin brothers received flowers anonymously every Mother's Day until her death in 1973, and two very tall, unusual women in heavy makeup were reported to have attended her funeral. In the years since, nearly 6 decades of silence from the man has led many to believe that the escape was a shamble. On December 31, 1979, the FBI closed its investigation, concluding that the escapees were unlikely to have survived a treacherous swim across more than a mile of frigid waters to the mainland. The case was turned over to the U.S. Marshal Service, who continued to look into whether the trio was still alive. However, in January 2018, CBS San Francisco published an excerpt from a letter addressed to the FBI that told a completely different story, and claimed that the criminals had been on the run since the 1960s. "My name is John Anglin," it read. "I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962 with my brother Clarence and Frank Morris. I'm 83 years old and in bad shape. I have cancer. Yes, we all made it that night, but barely." The letter was delivered to the San Francisco Police Department's Richmond station in 2013, but it was kept secret during an extensive investigation. An FBI laboratory examined the letter for fingerprints and DNA, as well as analyzing the handwriting contained within, but the results were inconclusive. The writer explained in the letter that he was the last surviving member of the trio, with his co-conspirators dying in 2005 and 2008. He offered a deal. If authorities announced on television that he would receive a single 1-year prison sentence, during which he would be able to receive the medical treatment he required, I will write back to let you know exactly where I am. This is no joke. The FBI did no such thing and instead repressed the letter. Though this is the first time anyone claiming to be one of the men has contacted authorities, it isn't the first piece of evidence indicating that they may have survived. On the night of the men's disappearance, San Francisco police officer Robert Chetchi reported seeing a pristine white boat out in the bay. It had no lights on, but someone on board appeared to be shining a flashlight into the water. Police investigated the sighting but were unable to locate the owner of the strange boat or determine where it went next. A 2015 History special featured an alleged photograph of the brothers taken in Brazil 13 years after their disappearance. Family members of the man have also reported strange occurrences, implying that there is more to the story than most people believe. It's always been discussed in the family. David Widner, a nephew of John and Clarence Anglin, told CBS, "After the escape, my grandmother received roses for several years. Anglin would be nearly 90 years old if he were still alive today. He hasn't been seen or heard from since." However, federal authorities were quick to dispel any rumors of a successful Great Escape. In an interview with CBS San Francisco, the U.S. Marshals investigating the case told the broadcasters that they considered the lead closed and without merit, and that it was a simple hoax perpetrated by someone hoping to defraud and embarrass federal and local authorities. The Federal Bureau of Prisons says they drowned once they got off Alcatraz, and their bodies were swept out to the Pacific Ocean. End of story, said National Park Service Ranger John Cantwell. In 1963, a year after the man vanished, Alcatraz prison was permanently closed due to high operating costs. It now attracts over 1 million tourists each year, many of whom are drawn to the site by the story of the Anglin brothers, which was adapted for the screen in the 1979 film Escape from Alcatraz. The man's escape from John Anglin's cell is a popular tourist attraction. It's almost perfectly preserved with the same gaping hole in its steel-painted wall. But even the scene of the crime provides few clues as to where these great escapees ended up.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to say that I am incredibly grateful that you took time out of your schedule to listen to my narration. This is Nikki of Twysted Mind, wishing you a great rest of your day. Salamat.